Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about how Florida should watch out this winter due to El Nino's extreme effect on Florida's winter, of course. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. So, first let's start with the actual ENSO. So, basically, winter runs from December to February, and we see in the January, February, March, and December, January, February, periods at to the right, we do see that El Nino probabilities are above 90%, meaning an El Nino is likely during this period. Now, I'm not going to get into on this slide how strong it will be. We'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, we do see how La Nina chances are not going to be resurging as far as we can tell based on the latest probabilities, and neutral probabilities should stay below 10% for the most part. And that's why I'm making this video, because El Nino chances are very likely to go into the winter and past that even next year. So these are the ECMWF EPS anomaly plumes for ENSO. So we do see how for December, January, February, it only goes up to about the beginning of January. But for December, at least, what we can see is there's a lot of spread, but all of the models show above 1 on the ENSO 3.4 index, so Nino 3.4 index, basically meaning at least a moderate El Nino is likely. But then we see all of these plumes going to 1.5 to even above 3, and these are showing like a strong El Nino, which is going to have the biggest effect on Florida's weather. Also, and by the way, I'm making a Florida video because I thought this was interesting, and of course, most of my viewers are from Florida, if you were just wondering. Any specific state requests can be made in the comments. Anyway, moving on. So, due to the fact of the high model spread, it's too soon to say how strong the ENSO El Nino should actually be. But we definitely do see how something very strong could take place to going to the ENSO extremes. So yeah, we do see here that El Nino effect on the United States weather for winter, of course. So we see low pressure systems coming from the Pacific polar jet stream is farther north, meaning these dry and warm conditions are farther north into the Midwest plains and into Canada and Alaska, and these wetter, colder conditions, mainly the biggest effects is precipitation. So the wet conditions are pushed south into the southern United States, and especially you see there into the southeast coast and into Florida. And that's where the Pacific jet stream goes through Florida, whether it's northern Florida, southern Florida, it depends, of course. And this is definitely different than last winter's, which was this recently ending winter, the 2022 to 2023 winter, where it was a neutral pattern, which didn't give that much to the southeast Florida region of the United States, but this one will be very different. It's just neutral patterns don't give that much to Florida. All of these graphics up after this, besides at the very end, I'm going to show, of course, my video thumbnail again, but all of these other ones are provided by the National Weather Service Tallahassee. It's a study done by them, so that's what all these graphics are by. Anyway, so cooler, wetter conditions, as we can see. We see to the left above average precipitation and cooler than average precipitation from Texas, but that's not what we're going to talk about here. But we do see increased chances for severe weather in Florida due to the cooler and basically wetter conditions. So it's mainly, of course, for the Florida Peninsula, but of course we see it goes into the Florida Big Bend, Florida Panhandle area, but all the way to, I would say, maybe near Quincy or something like that. Which is a city in Florida. So we have to watch out for that. Of course, above average precipitation, cooler than average temperatures is definitely going to have effect on other parts of the United States, but Florida seems to have the most extreme effect, definitely. So above average severe weather, or at least increased chances for much of Florida and in other places too. But like I said, Florida is going to be the most amplified in terms of precipitation and severe weather. And then, of course, the drier, warmer air is up in the northeast. So, we're going to start with rainfall, the most extreme effect. We do see in all regions of Florida, southern, central, northern Florida, and the Florida Panhandle, we do see that La Nina gives us, the state of Florida, the least precipitation. And we can see the medians and stuff, the median, the red line. We do see quartile 2 is in southern Florida below 3 inches, central Florida and around 5 inches, 9 inches in northern Florida, and about 13 inches in the Florida Panhandle. So obviously we can tell the Florida Panhandle gets the most rain, but of course that's due to systems coming up from the northern Gulf or down from the United States, which is actually the main cause. But definitely we do see neutral. Yeah, neutral doesn't give us the most extreme effects in Florida, but it can give us a good amount of rain around the middle. But we do see El Nino gives us the highest amount of rain. So we definitely do see it has the most extreme effect on northern and central Florida. We do see we can get upwards of 20 and 18 inches in those regions. And even the median is much higher than, and the median for central and northern Florida and also the Florida Panhandle and southern Florida, their medians are all higher than the highest average extent of neutral and La Nina. So that means that El Nino does have an extreme effect in giving more rainfall than anywhere in Florida. And of course, in neutral, we can get downwards of 4 inches in southern Florida, for example, and then it can be over 14 in strong El Ninos. And then, of course, in Florida, you can get up to over 22 inches. Northern Florida up to about 20 inches, and central Florida up to about 18. So that's definitely something to watch out for. So that, of course, caused more flood events. So compared to ENSO. So basically, all N, of course, is neutral, and W, L, M, L, and S, L mean weak for W, M for medium, and S for strong. So weak La Nina, medium La Nina, strong La Nina, and of course, same for the ENSO. E is for, E for El Nino, of course. So strong El Nino, medium El Nino, weak El Nino. We do see medium and strong El Nino events cause very high flash flood events in the state of Florida, and especially strong El Ninos get up to over 20 river flood events, which of course is what causes our flooding, and medium El Nino is over 10. So definitely, whether it's a medium or strong El Nino, we're definitely going to have elevated flood events, because we're likely going to have more than a weak El Nino. We're actually already in around towards +1 on the Nino 3.4. That's around a moderate El Nino. So we're already past weak El Nino, and expected to strengthen still, like what I showed you earlier in the video. If we can go back to that. Yeah, it's definitely expected to strengthen more. And probabilities are expected to go up. Anyway, let's go back. And now we're going to go into severe weather. So that text I did not make, of course. All of this is by the National Weather Service in Tallahassee. So we see in La Nina storms, low pressure systems are more north. And sure, we can still get some stuff in Florida, but it's mainly for northern Florida and the Florida Panhandle. And of course, in neutral, nobody gets much of anything. But of course, the severe weather is more north. But in typical El Nino storm tracks, we do see this unstable air mass is pushed more south and east. So, of course, we have pretty much the entirety of Florida getting more. We see low pressure systems going directly through Florida. So we can see northern Florida, the Florida Panhandle, central and southern Florida getting more severe weather instead of just northern parts of Florida. So El Nino produces a distinct severe weather system across the Florida Peninsula, and of course, more in the latter half of the winter season. And of course, 1997 to 1998 El Nino was a pinnacle severe weather event in Central Florida. So we can see here in neutral events, we see... Oh, by the way, these are for significant events per season, which basically means 20-plus reports of EF2s, or just it means 20-plus reports of any severe weather report. It doesn't have to be significant, or any significant weather report like an EF2 plus tornado. So basically, these are any events of significant weather happening or a large severe weather events happening, or both. So in neutral, we definitely see we have the lowest, especially in central and southern Florida. We have like below 1, like that means pretty much usually none happen, and then only around 2 in northern Florida, and these are events, of course. I'm not talking about one report. You'll usually have way more than one report in these events, and then and just the whole Southeast has less. It's only 3, so these are usually the least. Like this winter, we really didn't get anything. Now in La Nina, Sure, the southern central Florida doesn't get that much, but the northern Florida still has around 3 or 2 weather events. Now, in El Nino, we do see that now southern and central Florida usually get around 2 to 3 weather events, and even in the most southern parts of southern Florida, you can at least get 1 significant severe weather event or big severe weather event. And we definitely see the highest towards Alabama, so definitely more to see here, more widespread. And then El Nino, 1997 to 1998, we saw up to 7 in central Florida, and we had elevated numbers still in northern Florida. We still had 3 and 4. So, and 5 in southern Florida, so that's definitely crazy that happened. And I'm not saying it's going to be like that, but of course that was interesting. How one El Nino could cause such big severe weather in Florida, and of course this is for November to April. So these are tornado events. Of course, severe weather is more than tornadoes, but tornadoes is one part of it, which is easily forecasted, or more easily forecasted to put into climatology than wind and hail. Basically, tornado events, and of course, WEMESE mean the same thing as it did in the previous graph: weak El Nino, strong El Nino, medium El Nino. So we see in central and south Florida, in strong El Ninos, we definitely, and just El Nino in general, we definitely do see an elevated amount of tornadoes. Now, in parts of like Southeast Alabama, South Georgia, and North Florida, it's around the same. And besides neutrals, which cause much lower tornado events, we definitely do see for just Southeast Alabama, South Georgia, North Florida. In general, El Ninos can cause around an average amount of tornadoes. But we do see La Ninas can cause an elevated amount, but that's mainly for South Georgia and Southeast Alabama. For the North Florida part of it, El Ninos can usually cause an elevated amount of tornadoes too, just not as much as Central and South Florida, and medium El Ninos can actually cause much elevated amounts of tornadoes still for those regions. Anyway, that's it. So basically what we've seen about this is major flooding and significant severe weather will be much more possible across Florida this winter due to El Nino causing more significant severe weather events, as you saw in one of those graphics, and just more severe weather in general. It doesn't have to be significant to be bad. So just more significant severe weather and severe weather overall for Florida, especially central Florida, but of course the whole area has to watch out as those effects are statewide, and major flooding because, of course, we've had, with El Ninos, more river flooding events, so more flooding in general, but definitely more major flooding events as we've seen too. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Any questions, please don't forget to put them in the comments, and just watch out, and I'll make more videos about this probably in a couple months. Since it's far out, I won't be constantly posting about this, of course. Anyway, have a great day, evening, or whatever time it is, and bye, guys.